It's a well-established fact that UAP and the non-human intelligences behind them have taken a direct interest in the offensive nuclear capabilities of not only the United States, but Russia and China, and I would imagine any other country that happens to have nuclear weapons. There are only a few. I'll let you take a guess. They have demonstrated, and this is well documented, not only an ability to locate nuclear assets wherever they may be, if that's in a missile silo in the American Midwest or in a submarine submerged in the ocean, they can find them and they can interfere with these assets, whether it's a ICBM or a power plant on a submarine or an aircraft carrier. They can turn them on, they can turn them off. And they have not only demonstrated the ability to do that, but they've done it both to American assets, Soviet, Russian assets. I would imagine the Chinese, probably the North Koreans, although they probably don't need a whole lot of help getting their shit to fall apart. But it's a lot. There's a lot going on. And it's been established that this takes place, not just once in a while, but on a pretty regular basis. On top of that, we have people in the community, most notably and most recently, Chris Bledsoe, the contactee who wrote about his amazing experience in his book, UFO of God. He talks about a number of contact experiences he had that were witnessed by multiple people, including friends and family and coworkers. His case is extremely well documented. He experienced a contact event where he was told of events that would happen at a later time. He was, some people say prophecy. I say it was more of a message. It may or may not happen, but depends on how you interpret the message. But basically, it boils down to if Iran and Israel start exchanging missiles, the non-human intelligences that are present here, operating in, on, around Earth, will be forced to intervene. And that intervention would be such an ontological shock, a system shock to our entire society, that what happens next is kind of unknowable. It's like an event horizon we can't quite see beyond. It's too big. It would be literally the biggest thing that has ever happened. So we have no precedent for what comes next. But Chris Bledsoe is not the only person who has talked about this. Danny Sheehan, attorney, disclosure advocate, teacher, cool, just all around guy. Danny Sheehan, in a presentation at Harvard, of all places, said basically the same thing. I'm going to play you Danny Sheehan's clip first, and then we'll take a listen to what Chris Bledsoe had to say, and then we'll talk about it.
And it's going to be extraordinarily important for you to understand that there is an uprising that is going on right now on behalf of making this information public. And we want you to become part of this. We want to integrate this at the academic level. We want the students to rise up in the same way that the students rose up against the Vietnam War. We want the studentry to rise up. This is your future. This is your future that we're talking about here. And it's outrageous for you to be sitting in major universities where they've brought you together ostensibly to teach you to how to cope with the world, and that you're not yet dealing with this profound issue. Okay? Not only the issue of UFOs, but the issue of the potential thermonuclear war, and the issue of global climate change. You've got to come to grips with all three of these things, because your world is getting set to change right out from under you. Okay? And you don't know it yet. So that those of you who get out ahead of the power curve and start dealing with this right now are going to be the ones that are the go-to people when the roof starts falling in on this issue. And you're going to be the one that people say, oh, I know a friend who's been talking about this. I know a person who's been trying to get courses taught at the university about this. okay? That you want to start reaching out to help our fellow human beings prepare for this, because this is going to have huge repercussions on the geopolitical structures of our planet, the economy of our planet, the religious institutions of our planet, the domestic political institutions that we have. We have to work together to be able to maintain as much agency, as much sovereignty as we can possibly legitimately maintain in the face of the revelation of the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization. You know, the fact of the matter is they seem to be preparing now to potentially intervene directly to stop the thermonuclear war and to stop the total devastation of our ecological systems on our planet, okay? And that means that the intervention is going to reveal their presence. And that's what's motivating a significant number of people in the Pentagon right now to be coming forward, trying to establish a systematic process for a controlled disclosure about their presence, because they believe that if in fact this is put off and the Defense Department continues to lie about this, then what's going to happen is when the intervention takes place on the part of the extraterrestrial civilization, it's going to be totally disruptive. That people are not prepared for it, that they haven't been prepared to know how to respond to it economically, politically, geopolitically, religiously, and theologically. And it's
There's Danny Sheehan for the New Paradigm Institute speaking at Harvard University. Fun fact, I actually had an opportunity to go to that talk, and I couldn't be there, unfortunately, which sucks because I think Carl Nell was also there that day, if I remember right. But that's Danny, and that's where he's at with this. Now, let's take a look at Chris Bledsoe's clip from Ross Coulthart's interview on News Nation. This is only 50 seconds long, so we'll take a quick look at this, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
It's going to be extraordinarily important for you to understand.
So you believe from what you've been told, which obviously you can't know for sure, you're only being told this, but you believe from what you're being told that the entities, the beings are going to intervene to stop us from killing ourselves.
They did that during November
And
on television.
And disclosure of the fact of a non-human intelligence.
It'll come next year.
You believe next year?
I'm sure. I feel sure. I think the government has got to. They have no choice. Because when these orbs appeared, and it showed them that I was in D.C. and I heard some of the conversation when they said, oh my God, this is catastrophic. If we don't tell it now, they may come back in 2026 and land, and if they do that, we just lost the control of our country.
So there you have it from Chris Bledsoe. His contact experiences have been, again, extremely well documented. He has been the subject of much discussion over the last few years since his story broke. And he has stuck to a pretty specific timeline, suggesting that 2026 is going to be the time where non-human intelligence reveals itself. So what does all this mean? Well, on the one hand, there are many, many, many stories of non-human intelligences communicating one date or another to various people, either in some kind of telepathic way, through some type of dream or vision, or possibly through direct abduction where they're brought on board a craft and they're shown things or told things. That's been around for a long time. Dates come and go. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes something happens, but it's unclear if it's related. And it's pretty much like any other prediction. And that's generally how things have panned out so far. So what do we make of this stuff? To Danny's point, I am in agreement that it's either directly related to ecological collapse, ecosystem collapse, climate change, whatever you want to call it. It's humans polluting the biosphere, destroying the biosphere and the diversity of the planet. the biodiversity, or it's nuclear conflict for the same basic reason. Ultimately, it winds up destroying everything and damaging the biodiversity of the planet. Or, and this is just a recent thought, artificial intelligence for a slightly different reason, because the creation of truly intelligent, conscious machines, whether or not you agree that those machines are capable of possessing a soul, but a machine is not really relevant. But a machine that can think like a living being and can have agency and can directly affect the outer environment, that represents the emergence of a new intelligence that whatever non-human intelligence is watching us would have to contend with. So humans may not be that big of a deal, but humans who have developed artificial superintelligence are a different problem altogether. So those are the three big risk factors that I could see triggering a open contact event or an intervention, if we want to use those Danny's term. What's interesting about the way Danny phrases it is that he used, and I got this wrong in yesterday's live stream, but he uses the word sovereignty and the word, what did he say? Agency. We have to act now to maintain as much sovereignty and agency if and when the non-human intelligences intervene. Bledsoe said something very similar in his interview with Ross. He says, more or less, and I'm paraphrasing, but the people he's talked to that work in the intelligence world and the defense world, and we know that he's in contact with these people because there are photographs of them together. It's been documented in his book. I mean, this is all, they've come forward and talked about it. Other folks have confirmed it. So according to his sources, they're saying that if there's a nuclear exchange and non-human intelligence has to show up to intervene, then we basically lose control of our society. And that makes sense. That would make sense. The emergence of a new player on the game board, one that has an asymmetric advantage over every other player, would represent an extremely unstable element that would be impossible to predict where things go after that point, right? It would be a new paradigm. So the emergence of this intelligence, if it suddenly appeared, would immediately, from the standpoint of a conflict that is unfolding, it would represent this crazy, weird, unstable element that could trigger all kinds of weird knock-on effects. How different militaries react to that would be unknown or almost unknowable. There'd be too many players on the game board. So this entity, if they did appear, would need to, probably knowing that, would need to neutralize or somehow suspend the conflict. It would have to display some enormous display of power that would be shocking, right? I'm just gaming this out. So roll with me on this and tell me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think there's a better, scenario, or if you can imagine it. Different scenario. So I would imagine they appear, they intervene in the conflict in a spectacular way that causes everyone to stop and take a breath and just watch. And at that moment, societies around the world are going to turn to their institutions for stability. Whether it's your government institutions or religious institutions or whatever, people are going to lean on things that are familiar to them for support, because it's going to freak them out. A lot of people are going to be completely freaked out. Some people will treat these beings like gods. They will see them like gods. Others will see them like invaders. Others will see them in a different way, unless they do something, I guess, and arrest the situation. And, I don't know. I don't know how, what their capabilities are, but I imagine they're pretty spectacular. So you're going to have chaos down here. People are going to be struggling to figure out what to do, what's going on. And then a day will pass, a week will pass, a month will come and go, and it will be like going through a cultural moment that is the size of whatever size you estimate the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s to have been, plus the impact of the collapse of the Soviet Union combined, multiplied by a few orders of magnitude. It would be like that, right? And then the next day will come, the next week, the next month, and then a year. And then one day you'll just look around and this will be the world. Whatever unfolds after that point, like, we'll just be in it. But during that transition period, everything will be up for grabs. Everything's going to be on the table. And I think people are going to be asking really hard questions about, who do we look to for authority? Who do we look to for leadership? Who is our government really are they the best people for the job, given how poorly they've executed it up to that point? And then you're going to have these beings that will appear by all, whatever metric you use to measure them, vastly superior to us. And people will naturally ask, well, if you have a superior civilization, maybe you should be in charge, if they're not already in charge at that point. Religions are going to have to grapple with this to figure out how to fit these beings into their framework, their theological framework. And I think they will probably have an easier time of it than, governments, because governments have lied about all of this stuff from the very beginning and muddied the waters. But, people understand the hierarchy of beings. That's a concept that's familiar to most people in one way or another. So however you look at it, there's going to be, everything will be on the table. What's interesting, and I guess what's an open question is, I'm of two minds about what could be going on here. And the longer I look at this whole situation, the more distilled my perspective becomes on what is actually going on. It's one of two things, I think. And I reserve the right to be wrong. So, if it's not this, then I'm sorry. But whatever, what can I do? It's either an advanced civilization sent out probes into deep space. This is my scenario, specifically to regions that are likely to have the ingredients necessary for life. And then those probes identified planets that were likely to produce life, Earth being one of those planets. We got basically a satellite that is parked there to monitor us. Now, whether it's a satellite in orbit or if it's a subterranean facility, there is an automated intelligence that is here observing the evolution of life on this planet. And it does so through direct and indirect means. This is just my speculation. This is just my guess. If you believe in what the 4chan leaker has talked about, and if you've heard this story, you already know. But if you haven't heard this, basically there's this idea floating around that there is are many bases located beneath the ocean that spontaneously generate these craft that we see in our skies. Not spontaneously, but they manufacture them. It's like an automated factory. They manufacture the craft, they deploy the craft, and then the craft are mission specific. They are built for specific jobs. They go out, they do the job, they come back, and then they get recycled. Every once in a while, we catch one, we shoot one down, we catch one, and take it apart or whatever. Inside some of these are what we would consider beings, but they're not exactly beings. They're more like an android, like a biological android, also manufactured, paired with the craft, like two parts of a single machine, a single unit. They operate the craft. They can get off the craft. They can deploy independently of the craft. They can maneuver and do things. And somehow the craft and the beings interface using some type of a consciousness-based interface. This, I believe, is likely one of these, these scenarios. So there's that scenario. And the other scenario is that it's an older civilization that has been here for a very long time. They have been living either in a shadow biosphere or in a different region, possibly subterranean society, possibly under the oceans, but they're not immediately obvious to us here on the surface, but we share the planet with them. And that would be a situation where they want to stay out of sight, more or less out of mind. They probably watch us from a distance. They probably study everything we do. And the only time they get really nervous is when we get too close to exploding atomic bombs all over the world and destroying everything. Why? Because they live here too. They're probably numerically inferior to us. I mean, they just have much, much smaller numbers, but much higher technology. So their ideal scenario is they remain hidden. They study us from a distance. They influence us from afar. They lean on our civilization. They do things. They may have exchanges with us if they need to, but for the most part, they mind their business and stay away, and they monitor us. To me, of all the different things it could be, those are my two favorites right now. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. I want to go on a little bit more here, and I just want to point something out to you guys. If you want to know more about some of the threats that we're dealing with at a species-wide level, you can go to thebulletin.org. This is the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. They're a 501c3, 501c C3 organization. They're a nonprofit organization that basically tracks global threats. And they have this thing called the Doomsday Clock, where they use a clock as sort of a metaphor for how close we are to species-wide suicide, which is the name of my new band. And they track different things, but, you know, the famous Iron Maiden song is 2 minutes to midnight. They have set the clock to 89 seconds to midnight. So we're closer than we've ever been to some kind of conflict. Associated Press, as of the time I'm recording this, this is the homepage. Live updates: Iran warns that U.S. involvement would risk all-out war as Israel strikes Tehran. It's unclear what happens in a conflict like this, but it's definitely clear that it's not good. And it could spiral out of control really, really quickly. There's a video called How Would a Nuclear War Between Russia and the U.S. Affect You Personally? And this was put out by the Future of Life Institute. It's about 4 minutes long. I want to show it to you just to give you a rough idea. Russia has aligned themselves with the Iranian government, and of course the United States is a staunch ally of Israel. So it's foreseeable that missile exchanges between Iran and Israel could spiral into something more. And it only takes one nuclear weapon being detonated in anger to set off a chain reaction. This is what that chain reaction would look like. And this is why I think a non-human intelligence, whether it's actually here on Earth, living here with us, or it's an automated system here to monitor us, I think this would trigger their intervention.
What would happen if there was a full-scale nuclear war between Russia and the United States? Based on non-classified data, the aftermath might go something like this. When one side launches nuclear missiles, the other side detects them and fires back before impact. U.S. submarine-launched ballistic missiles from west of Norway start striking Russia after about 10 minutes, and Russian ones from north of Canada start hitting the U.S. a few minutes later. The very first strikes are high-altitude EMP attacks, frying electronics and power grids by creating an electromagnetic pulse of tens of thousands of volts per meter. The next strikes target command and control, as well as nuclear launch facilities. Land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles take about half an hour to arrive. Major cities are targeted, both because they contain military facilities and to stymie the enemy's post-war recovery. Some cruise missiles take hours to reach their target. Each impact creates a fireball about as hot as the core of the sun, followed by a radioactive mushroom cloud. These intense explosions vaporize people nearby and cause fires and blindness further away. The fireball expansion then causes a blast wave that damages buildings, crushing nearby ones. the United Kingdom and France have nuclear capabilities and are obliged by NATO's Article 5 to defend the US. So Russia hits them too. Firestorms engulf many cities, where storm-level winds fan the flames, igniting anything that can burn, melting glass and some metals, and turning asphalt into flammable hot liquid. But the explosions, the electromagnetic pulse, and the radioactivity aren't the worst part. Nuclear winter is, caused by the black carbon smoke from the nuclear firestorms. The Hiroshima atomic bomb caused such a firestorm, but today's hydrogen bombs are much more powerful. A large city like Moscow, with almost 50 times more people, can create much more smoke. And a firestorm sends plumes of black smoke up into the stratosphere, far above any rain clouds that would otherwise wash out the smoke. This black smoke gets heated by sunlight, lofting it like a hot air balloon for up to a decade. High-altitude jet streams are so fast that it takes only a few days for the smoke to spread across much of the northern hemisphere. In the meantime, Earth gets freezing cold, even during the summer, with farmland in Kansas cooling by about 20 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and other regions cooling almost twice as much. A recent scientific paper estimates that over 5 billion people could starve to death, including around 99% of those in the United States, Europe, Russia, and China. We obviously don't know how many people will survive a nuclear war. But if it's even remotely as bad as scientists think, then it has no winners, merely losers. It's easy to feel powerless, but the good news is that there is something you can do to help. Please share this video, because the more people know about nuclear war, the less likely it is that we'll start one.
I like how they try to pep it up at the end there, because it's such a good bummer. So that's what it would take to get them to intervene. I think it would be that has to get to that point, and then in that moment, we might get an intervention of some kind. But that doesn't mean that if they intervene, it could mean different things too. It doesn't mean that they save all of humanity and the Earth just goes into a period of paradise. Like that doesn't necessarily happen. An intervention could mean they save some people, and everybody else dies. It could mean we don't know. So I wouldn't rely on that. That's it's a quasi-religious sort of hopeful outcome, hoping that maybe someone steps in and saves the day at the very last second as we stand at the precipice. There was, I was watching this and I was reminded of the first Gulf War in 1991, the Kuwaiti oil fields burning. And it's just unbelievable how much destruction we are capable of. It's just unbelievable. If you haven't ever seen this, you should go look it up on YouTube and watch. Just look at the oil fields, 1991 Iraq, and just as far as you could see, he did it. He set these oil fields on fire to blind our satellites, because the satellites at that time, the smart bombs at that time, were all guided by lasers, and I guess the idea was that he could somehow throw up this smoke screen by lighting all the oil fields on fire. But it took over a year for them to put them all out. And I mean, just imagine tens of thousands of barrels of oil every minute shooting up out of the ground into a plume of fire that just burns for like months. So, when I look at the possibilities that would necessitate a intervention on behalf of the planet, not necessarily human beings, but on behalf of the planet from some non-human intelligence, it's got to be big. I mean, that came and went, and that wasn't big enough. So nuclear conflict, maybe. But this is another clip I want to show you guys. This is from the Reddit channel Combat Footage. And take a look at this. This is scary as hell. Iran's 14th wave of Operation True Promise 3. This is just the title, targeting Israeli Army Command and Intelligence Centers. Okay. It looks like they've blurred out the surroundings so you can't tell where these missiles are being launched from. At least from the video, but you can see them from space. I don't know, guys. This is scary. This is scary stuff. We just watched a genocide take place. And then that situation, before it's even resolved, and it's never, well, I shouldn't say that. It will never be resolved. You can't resolve that. But now we're on to this. And as of today, the United States it looks like will be involved in some level, at some level. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where we don't get involved. The president is either going to look weak or he's going to look ineffective. He's between a rock and a hard place. He either has to get involved or he has to look weak. And he doesn't want to look weak. So he has to get involved. But if he gets involved, he violates a huge promise he made during his campaign not to get involved in foreign conflicts. So it's a lose-lose for him unless, I don't know, unless something else happens, I guess. It just looks terrifying. And I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. And I don't know, as I wrap up today, I would just say this. The project of elevating human consciousness is something that we have to practice individually. This is an individual personal journey that everybody's on. No one can tell you really how to do it, but we can help each other along the way. And one of the things that I've found to be true, at least for myself, is that as I work on elevating my consciousness and trying to become more in contact with the sacred things in life, the more the true joys of life, it becomes harder and harder to tolerate nonsense, just nonsense. And when I look around at our political landscape today, whether you're looking at the Republicans or the Democrats or a different party altogether, it doesn't really matter. It's just a lot of fucking nonsense and it leads nowhere. And I can say this as someone who's now like squarely settled into my midlife. And I'm just saying, sometimes I talk about this. I feel like it's kind of corny, but I'm saying this when I talk like I'm talking to you now. I'm talking to me when I was 20 years old. I'm just trying to like reach out to myself at 20 years old. And if there's someone out there who's like where I was, hopefully this connects. But I would say this. For my entire life, from the moment I graduated high school, the first thing that happened right after I graduated high school was 9/11. September 11th happened, and then we entered a period, the longest period in American history of sustained conflict. We went to war in Iraq. We went to war in Afghanistan. We were in Afghanistan for over 20 years. We spent trillions of dollars, $4, $5, $6 trillion. I mean, the estimates are all over the place because a lot of that money just wound up missing, and they don't even know. And at the end of it all, through it all, while it was going on, we were told back home, you can't have universal health care. You can't have any kind of security, job security. We're going to outsource everything all overseas. You can't guarantee, we can't guarantee you that Social Security will be there. We can't forgive student loans. We can't invest in our infrastructure. We can't have high-speed rail. We can't do, universal college education for everybody. We don't have the money. We don't have the fucking money. We're broke. We don't have the money. We spend it all on war. That's where it got spent. And now they come to us and they tell us again, they go, well, we just don't have money to do all the things that we want to do because, now it's something else. It's immigration or it's, I don't know. It's like people in Los Angeles or whatever. Like there's always some other reason. And it's just fucking nonsense. I'm saying this because it looks like we're about to do this again. And if you watch this amazing clip, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan, and we're not going to do it now, but if you watch this clip that is circulating of Tucker Carlson um, basically reading Ted Cruz the Riot Act on his podcast, it's amazing. But when you look at that clip, and you should watch it, Ted Cruz and motherfuckers like him will gladly, without hesitating, without blinking, they won't think twice. They will send you, they'll send your kid, they'll send your neighbor's kid to another country and tell them they've got to go kill other people just like them because America. And it's nonsense. It's always been nonsense, and it always will be. Don't let them do it again. Don't let these people get us all killed. The adults in the room have got to stand up and start demanding more, not just of our politicians, but of people in your orbit, people around you, people in your circle. You have to look around at the people in your world, and you have to identify the ones who are not on Team Human. Like, you are either on our team or you're not. You have got to get these people either to come around and understand that it's not a war we have to be fighting with each other. It's not like we're not each other's enemy. The enemy is the 1% of people at the very, very top who are playing us. They're playing us. They've always played us. This has always been a class war. Always. And we don't have a whole lot of time left to really make real decisions that are actually going to have an impact on our future, because the speed that things are developing, I can foresee a time in the very near future where it just doesn't matter what people do anymore, because it really won't make a difference, because we won't have any more control to exercise or power to exercise. So that's my 2 cents. Coalesce not around political ideologies necessarily, but coalesce around basic concepts of human dignity. War is wrong. It's just wrong. It's wrong to kill people. It's wrong to kill people you've never met. It's wrong to push a button and obliterate a family somewhere else in the world. There's no reason there's no reason that's okay. Ever. Ever. It's not. And it's not okay to do this to children and to do this to families. And it's not okay to tear families apart. It's not like, you have to decide what's acceptable. And then hold other people to a higher standard. And when people go on television and they say ridiculous, crazy, stupid bullshit about how it's like, well, I didn't come here illegally or what, they've got some kind of weird, they twist themselves in knots to find ways to make it like okay to do horrible things to each other. You just got to cut that shit right off and say, no, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. So anyway, I'm rambling now, but I just think that, part of the project is about improving your internal environment and understanding like what makes you tick, meditating, getting into contact with your deeper self, trying to stay in touch with the universal intelligence, but also actualizing some of the positive things in the world, the shared world. We all also coexist in a participatory sort of shared reality. So we have to participate in it. You have a responsibility, not just as a citizen of wherever you live, but as a citizen of Earth, as a conscious being, to look out for other beings and try to do the right thing. And I think as time goes on, we're going to have to think much more deeply about what that means to us individually, and try to find ways to develop that idea. But the ingredients are all there. I'm not the first person to say things like this, and I certainly won't be the last. And a lot of this is just common sense. But anyway, let me know what you think. Don't be afraid to leave a comment, reach out. You can go to the website, teamnightshift.com. You can drop me an email there. Thank you so much for all the people who've been sending kind emails and kind messages. You guys are wonderful. I'm reading them, and it's spectacular. I'm glad and proud of I'm glad to be a part of and proud to be a part of such a warm and caring community of cool people. So we'll be back tomorrow with the usual panel on Friday, our live stream, Friday night live, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time, every Friday, right here on the night shift. See you then.